So we are here today to spotlight the MET, Manufacturing, Engineering, and Technology pathway at Carver Middle High School. That is in the advanced manufacturing industry sector. And we have a number of guests who will be speaking to you about their experiences in that pathway. But just a few introductory points to get us going. As always, we are recording our webinar so that we can post a recording of it for folks who are not able to be here in person today. And we make closed captioning available to you using Otter. So in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you should see a button that says live. And if you click on the down arrow, it will give you instructions on how to access closed captioning in real time, should you wish to do that. In the room today, there are some folks I would like you to know about. Speaking of technical issues, my colleague Allison from the Center for Collaborative Education is here, and you should feel free to message her if you run into any technical glitches. I'm also joined by my colleague Corbett from CCE, and he will be helping monitor the chat today. And my name is Annie Leonard, and I'm the Director of Coaching and the Innovation Career Pathways Project Lead at the Center for Collaborative Education. We are a proud partner to DESE in supporting the Innovation Career Pathways Community of Practice. And I'm going to pass to my DESE colleague, Jennifer, to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Happy STEM Week. Seeing the list of participants, lots of faces that I've been around this week at events across the state. Thank you for joining us today for this event. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from Carver. I don't believe that any DESE colleagues are joining me today, but if anybody else hops on, I will be sure to acknowledge them in the chat. Thanks.
Sounds good. And I also wanted to mention that we are really happy to have brought on board our cohort of 2023-24 peer ambassadors for our network. And you can see their names and faces here, and you can learn a lot more about them on our webpage, the maicp.org peer ambassador page. Will pop into the chat. If you want to click through there, you can find out where they work and what pathways they're designated in. And they are a really terrific resource who are really generous with their time and expertise in our community. And one piece of evidence about that generosity is that Meredith Erickson, one of our new peer ambassadors, is going to be our host and as the assistant superintendent for teaching and learning in Carver and one of the leaders of their innovation career pathways. We're really fortunate to have her and her panelists here today. So what we're going to do today is explore the MET pathway through the perspectives of students, educators, and employer partners. We hope to offer you food for thought, and that is ways that elements of this pathway might apply to your work and your home setting, whether you are already in implementation with pathways in advanced manufacturing or in other sectors, or I think especially if you are getting ready to submit a Part A application or in early years of designation. There's lots of good learning that's happened at Carver that can inspire your work. And as always, we want you to be able to build connections to others in our Innovation Career Pathways network. And we invite you to put your name and email address with your affiliation into the chat if you are open to being contacted by folks who are also in the room today. So we're going to wrap up introductions as quickly as we can and then move into some presentations from our panelists from Carver. We'll hope to leave a substantial amount of time for Q&A, and we're not a huge group today, so that may be relatively informal where you can unmute, or we'll also be monitoring the chat for your questions. And then we will close up with some reminders about other upcoming opportunities in our network and our survey. So as we turn it over to Meredith and her panelists, we are just really interested in hearing the experiences and conditions that led to your involvement in innovation career pathways, as well as specifically how you identified advanced manufacturing as the sector, one of the sectors that you pursued designation in.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here. I feel like we've had the opportunity over the past several years to really connect with other burgeoning pathways programs or those that are just interested in hearing what pathways are about. But it's nice to be able to have this forum today to do a little bit of a deeper dive and to tell our Carver story. So like Annie said, I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning for Carver Public Schools. We're a small district adjacent to Plymouth, so we're in beautiful Cranberry Country. And I'm joined today by Greg Howell, who's the president of Flexo Concepts in Plymouth, Mass. And you'll be hearing from him in just a few minutes. And then two of our students that have had the benefit of going through the MET program, a senior and a sophomore, so that you can hear different perspectives about where they are in the program. So with that said, the first question prompt that we were asked about is how we got involved with this experience. So our story really begins quite a few years ago, prior to COVID, so 2018. We were considering trying to start a Chapter 74 program or a voc ed program. And we went to the state and talked to them kind of about our vision. And they suggested that we really look into innovation pathways. They thought that it might be a better fit for a school our size, but really that it aligned better with our vision. And we had a couple different data points that drove our journey. So one of those data points was in doing classroom walkthroughs, we felt like there was really strong instruction occurring, but that in some cases that we weren't doing enough project-based learning and enough kind of rigor and relevance together. We wanted to make sure that students left with a clearer picture of how their high school experience could inform their future plans. And we also noticed that we had a larger than comfortable percentage of students that were graduating with no plan. So we had a lot of students that would matriculate to four-year colleges or, head off to really good schools, but we had between 20 and 28% of students, depending on the year, that still didn't have a tangible plan leaving high school. So we felt like empowering students early on to think about how they might envision their future could help guide some of these pathways. And we went through various iterations of calling them career pathways or career technical pathways. But at the end of the day, we ended up just sticking with Carver pathways, and two of those pathways are more fully developed. And they are the two that we went and applied for innovation pathway designation. So on the next slide, you'll just see a little bit of our branding that we do to try to help explain to parents and students in the community what our pathways are about. So we created like this little Mad Lib, and there's an action verb for each of our pathways that aligns with the intent. The first one on the left-hand side is our manufacturing, engineering, technology pathway. And since it's all about design and design engineering, we ask students, how will you design your future? So we were successful in creating the pathway, which involved hiring new staff. So we did have a 6th through 8th grade tech ed program, but there were no options for students after that. And we knew that we wanted to focus on something related to manufacturing, engineering, and technology, given the fact that there were a dearth of skilled laborers in those areas, and we wanted to try to align with that aspect of the innovation pathway design. So we really looked at broad industry sectors that we could introduce students to. looking at manufacturing, at the design engineering process, robotics, coding, and really like the portable skills that will be needed in the future, especially with the fact that so many jobs that these students will fill when they leave either high school or college have not yet been created. So we knew that we wanted to be nimble with that approach. And then we applied for innovation pathways, and our first official year was 2021, 2022. And we were really grateful as we were going through and looking for what resources we already had, what assets we had, and then what was missing. We recognized that we thought we knew where we wanted to go, but we didn't really know what industry needed. So we knew about design engineering. We knew about some exciting applications of that in the medical field or things that we had read about. We like to geek out on the latest technologies, but we didn't really understand the experience from someone in the workplace. So we were fortunate to reach out to Mass Hire, which again is a requirement of innovation pathways. And we had two superstars from Mass Hire that were willing to help us, Mary Kate Paris and Laura Buckley. And Laura ran a manufacturing advisory group here in Plymouth County. And we asked them for suggestions for a lead industry partner, again, not really knowing how everything would evolve. And they connected us with Greg, who you'll hear from in just a second. And so we felt like the biggest gap for us was trying to figure out what skills could be cultivated in our program and how to create those skills in an effective progression so that employers like Greg or others in the area would be able to count on us to have created students that were ready for that type of environment. And many of our students go on to college. It's one of the things that we love about innovation pathways is the requirement for 2 advanced classes, because we feel like it just keeps many doors open for students, and students that maybe traditionally didn't see themselves going on to college have the opportunity to be successful in either an advanced placement class or in our Project Lead the Way computer science experience. So we felt like that helped broaden the horizon across the board. And then in terms of determining our advanced and technical coursework, that is something that we continue to do. We're really fortunate to have an amazing educator who has connected really well with Greg. And Greg has had an open door policy with our teacher where they can get together and have the opportunity to talk about going on tours of different places and seeing what skills are really needed. And we feel like our teacher comes back and is super excited about these industry tours and about input from industry about curriculum, and even to the extent that they started a curriculum advisory group that is different than our steering committee that helps inform our curriculum. And it's really been a synergistic opportunity. So if you look on our website, we have all of our scope and sequence of our classes, but really the intention with these courses that have evolved over time is to make sure that they're project-based, that they have real-world applicability for students. We've done lots of different things, and again, the students will be able to talk about this, but everything from trying to come up with prototypes to fix issues that our local cranberry growers have with irrigation, to being product testers for iRobot. We're an iRobot ambassador school, and the students have had opportunities to interview folks from iRobot or have had the opportunity to have like virtual field trips so that they can understand what the future of robotics is looking like. And pulling from some of those strong experiences here in the Commonwealth has just helped broaden the perspective of our students and our educators. Additionally, we've really had a lot of discussion about student resilience and perseverance and making sure that when we're designing these projects that students appreciate and learn to appreciate feedback through various iterations of the same project, and that it's delivered in such a way that when students enter the workplace, that they're really comfortable hearing from their employer what needs to be fixed, and at the same time that they're able to collaborate with others and not only accept feedback and integrate that into their work, but also to help coach others on a team and provide that sort of communication. So, and then lastly, in terms of the project-based learning piece, we were able to get a generous grant through PBL Works, through Mass STEM Hub and the 1-8 Foundation, where we ended up training 30 of our teachers, not only those in pathways, but those in core content areas in the school, to better understand the gold standard elements of PBL. So we felt like that was an important piece. And then the last, here's a list of our different courses that we currently offer. And then the ones up top are part of our progression to be able to get to the point that we're meeting the pathway, but we also have robotics and topics in manufacturing, engineering, technology. And if there's anyone here that is in the process of writing curriculum or trying to figure out their scope and sequence, we're happy to answer questions related to that, or I can put you in touch with others and we can talk about kind of that more granular detail. And then I mentioned before how we were able to get connected with Greg and to determine our industry partners. He really has been our lead industry partner, but one thing that I think might make Carver unique, though I'm sure there are other schools that are in the same boat, is we don't have one internship site whereby we can place all of our MET students. We're pretty small in that regard. And so we want to be responsive to our students' needs as well and what they think they may want to do when they graduate. And so we've had a great opportunity to try to cultivate a rich array of places where we can put students and in terms of internship placement. And there have been some struggles with that, particularly coming out of COVID and realizing that for some employers, even though they might have needs in terms of employment, it's hard to sometimes take one of their current employees and have them dedicated to an intern. So we've had to troubleshoot some of those very real components as we've started to place students, if that makes sense. And so there's no better way to segue into an introduction of Greg than to say that this year he's been amazing and has taken on one of our interns, which has been excellent. And he can explain what that experience has been like.
Was that a segue to me or Dylan?
To you, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Meredith, and thank you all for joining us today. And you want me to speak specifically about bringing Dylan in and the internship?
Yeah, I think if you just want to talk a little bit about maybe how you've connected with us and how you've developed a partnership with us, and then how that's led to having Dylan on board.
Absolutely. So yeah, you know, I think as Meredith said, it goes back to my involvement in a manufacturing advisory board that was organized by the Mass MEP, which is led in our region by Laura Buckley, who does an amazing job. And you know, I don't know that everyone here is familiar with Mass MEP, but they're a great organization across the state that promotes programs and assistance and guidance in and around manufacturing. You know, every state in the nation has some form of an MEP, and ours is absolutely one of the strong ones. So it's a great resource for anyone pursuing pathways, particularly in the MET space, or in any case where the companies that a school might be targeting for internships would be companies that are manufacturers. So Laura had introduced me to Meredith, and I was interested very quickly. You know, this topic of kind of bridging the gap for high school students that don't intend to go to college, and finding them job opportunities in the region is something I'm very passionate about. You know, I have two kids that are now in college, but as they went through high school, I could see I could see it changing in real time, the number of students that were opting out of a 4-year college degree. And I could also see that the curriculums in many of the schools were not ready for that. I grew up at a time when we had VOTEC, and there's an absence of that type of curriculum for kids today. So I was very excited at the idea. And as Meredith indicated, David Aruda, who's the educator that is kind of running the program, we connected very quickly. And I became very interested in helping. So, that first year was kind of we did a number of things. One, as Meredith said, we tried to give David an appreciation for what type of skills we were looking for, either in kids that might come out of high school and go to work for us, or even what we thought would be preparatory for them for going on to a university. And, we brought David in and we showed him firsthand some of the things we were doing, both in terms of some of the technical skills as well as the soft skills that were important to us. At that time, the biggest concern I had as I thought about this program was, how do we create internships for students over the long run? It's one thing to have a vision of placing, a handful or even a dozen kids in internships. But as I start to see these programs popping up around the state, it's something I continue to think about a lot is, how do we, I look in Plymouth County, I look in the area we're at, and for the longest time, Carver was the only innovation pathway. And now others are popping up. And I'm thinking, what happens a couple of years from now when there's 100 kids in Plymouth County that want internships in manufacturing, engineering, and tech? That connection between the local schools and the local businesses is just not really set up to address that currently. So it's something that I have tried to bring to this relationship is to really become an advocate for Carver's program. We worked as a team to put on these 2 showcases that we alluded to, and both in, I think it was May of 2023 and May of 2022, we probably had 50, 60, 70 attendees from the community that we invited into Carver to see firsthand what the students were working on, and really honestly to sell the local members of the business community on the value of a partnership with this program, and the value of doing an internship with these high school students. And in our specific experience, Dylan has been here now since September. And it's been great from our perspective. And he says it's been great from his too, which I'm sure he's going to say that no matter how good it is. But I think I think he's enjoying himself. And we've taken what I think is maybe a little different approach than traditional internships. I think one of the addresses that any employer has when they think of an intern is what's the burden on my team, right? Businesses are very lean. People are very busy. If you're a manufacturer, you have been very busy in the last couple of years. So how do you bring in an intern and make it productive? So, I think the internships that maybe many of us know from the past, or somebody comes in and they get assigned to a person, and that person is responsible for the experience of this intern. And we kind of took a different approach. When Dylan first came in, I think, and he could probably tell me for sure, I think either his first 6 to 10 visits here, he spent with, he's here 2.5 hours each time he comes in, and the first 6 or 10, he was with a different person every time. He sat with our marketing manager, with our engineering manager, with engineers, with our manufacturing manager, with people in manufacturing, with people in sales. And, as much as Dylan thinks he wants to be an engineer, we want him to see the opportunities for engineers across a manufacturing organization, right? Many engineers go on to be great technical salespeople, or maybe he thinks he wants to be a designer, but maybe he realizes he wants to be in production management. So the early part of his internship was really kind of career discovery. We weren't asking him to do anything except show up on time and have and be enthusiastic. And he checked both of those boxes. And during that time, we were meeting as a group to talk about the projects that Dylan would eventually work on. I think another big element of our approach was to really design in some self-directed learning. Dylan's interested in SolidWorks. He's interested in 3D printing. He's interested in design. So we curated a bunch of content in and around those areas that he can go through by himself. So the first, 15 or 20 times Dylan showed up here, half of them were rotating him through organization, spending time with different people. And then the second half has been him on his own at his desk, working through tutorials on SolidWorks or tutorials on Cura, which is a 3D model slicing tool. Eventually we're going to expose him to the technology part of this internship. We're big users of the Salesforce platform, and likewise, we'll give him some self-directed learning he can go through in preparation for project work. We're really thinking the second half of the school year, the back half. And Dylan and I have talked about this. Maybe he's hearing some of it for the first or second time. We're really thinking this first semester is really about him giving strong foundations and some of the skills that we need for him to do the project work that we'll introduce him to in the back half of the year. So I don't know if that checked all the boxes for you, Meredith, but I'll stop at that point. If you want me to speak to anything else, or you want to pass the baton, whatever's best for you.
No, I think that was great. And I really want to make sure that we get to hear from Dylan and Sophia, both of whom are in the program and can talk a little bit about, Dylan can talk about his internship experiences, and then also just what he thinks about the courses he's taken, and Sophia as well. So I think with everyone's permission at this time, we'll turn it over to both of the students, and maybe we can start, Dylan, with you. Can you share why you think it's been valuable to have Pathways here?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is that it was really my freshman year of high school when the Pathways really started. And so going in, it was still kind of that hybrid COVID year. So I wasn't really sure what to expect walking in. But as I've been in my fourth year and senior year of the Pathway, I've gotten to really understand, all the amazing, techniques and machines. And one of my favorite things is just really the hands-on learning that you don't get from a traditional class if you're in math. Even AP classes, you're doing a lot of independent work, you're writing down, doing essays, things like that. But one of my favorite things is truly the hands-on learning. And it's something that myself and a lot of other students look forward to in the day, is just having that nice little break of, we're not sitting at a desk, we're up, we're out of our seats, we're using the machines, we're building things. And that's one of my favorite things. And just using different strategies too. The Pathway has taught me to think, outside the box, coming to, we have an idea for a project and really thinking of different ways that we can design something, have to think, what is this product being used for? What is the best way to manufacture it? We're going to 3D print, laser cut, and I think that thinking strategy really, especially, as a senior, when you're taking more advanced classes academically, those thinking strategies are so important when you're trying to solve a calculus problem or writing an essay. And I think that's a really cool thing. It's just kind of that shift in mindset, of that different way of thinking. And another cool thing too about the Carver Pathway especially is that a lot of the time our projects are based on real needs. So during my sophomore year, we had a local cranberry grower come, and cranberry bogs are a big thing here in Carver. And he had an issue with his sprinkler system, that the sprinklers, if they were malfunctioning, he had no way of detecting where to locate which one it was. So we came up with a way to we designed a mock cranberry bog with sprinklers and the water and everything. And we worked to design a way for him to have a way to find where exactly that broken sprinkler was. And so a lot of these projects that we do, if not all, are based on these real life applications that when you go graduate college and you're into the workforce, it really gives you like a step up, as I mentioned earlier, that different way of thinking, which I think is really awesome. And then just to kind of speak about what Greg said about my internship with Flexo Concepts, is using what I've learned in the Pathway and, my experience with the different machines that we've had and the different softwares. It's been good to really learn different, there's one software that's used, at the school and different one at Flexo, but, the understanding of the software and all that stuff, I love learning, everything. So it's cool to just have that, shift in mindset of, all these different things. So.
Thank you.
Of course.
Sophia, can you share a little bit about how you think the pathways have been valuable?
Absolutely. Thank you. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Sophia. I'm a sophomore at Carver Middle High School. And it's really valuable to have pathways in our school because it introduces students to new careers that they didn't know before. So I didn't know that I wanted to go into biomedical engineering until we did a project in topics of engineering, which you can see right now. You see a little teddy bear with looks like some bubble wrap around his arm. And that was a project I did, and that's the picture of my project. And after that project, there were so many other ones that really inspired me. Like there was a whale with no tail, and it had to be functional as well. So it had to move up and down. And seeing all of the different examples really inspired me. And I think it can inspire everyone else too, with all of the different pathways and how it can be special to every person in the school. It also helps the student to be more engaged in school. So with all the hands-on learning we do in the MET pathway, sometimes students are learners when they're more hands-on, and it really helps them be more engaged and helps them learn more. And also in the future, it helps students be more employable and have good almost like work skills in like jobs and stuff. But overall, we have amazing pathways, and I'm so glad we have.
Thank you. And I just want to talk a little bit about Sophia's teddy bear. This is, as she mentions, it's a topics in manufacturing, engineering, technology unit. And part of that project is students work together in teams. They are assigned a random animal that has some sort of disease or has a condition where they may have been left crippled or something has been amputated, and they have to go through prosthetic design using a lot of like the physics standards and a lot of math, and have to go through and create a viable prosthetic. So you can see the teddy bear here, but when you go in and talk with students about what they're doing, and it's really transformational. So I guess my next question to both Dylan and Sophia is, because we're part of a 6 through 12 school and our middle school lives within this area, if you were talking to 8th graders about what to expect with pathways or why they should consider signing up for a pathway, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that it's a great way to get involved in classes that you may have a passion about. And for me personally, I remember in middle school taking those intro level engineering classes, and we had the T-squares and drawing out the engineering drawings by hand, and we just gotten like our first 3D printer, and I thought that was so amazing. And I really enjoyed looking forward going to that class every day. And then I remember at the end of 8th grade year, I was talking to the teacher. I'm like, oh, so what's next year's class going to be about? And he's like, well, this is really it. This is just what we have. And I was kind of disappointed to hear like there was no, things you could do in high school to pursue like a further education in that class. So once, the introduction to the pathways was started, I was really happy to join that. And I feel like a lot of students, whether they're taking an intro to culinary class, an intro to computer science, environmental, any of those classes that they may have a passion about, it's a great way for them to really, in their high school career, to really go deeper into, their passion. And maybe they have, different parts of things that they like, and they might want to pursue a career. Maybe there's something they thought they would love and actually didn't, and that might have a huge impact on where they land in the future. And another thing too is just, you sign up for these pathways, and maybe you meet people that, you've been to school with for 8-9 years and you really never talked to, but you share a similar interest and can develop those connections and friendships. And I think that's a really cool part of it too.
Thank you. Sophia?
All right. So if I was talking to an 8th grader, I would tell them, why wouldn't you sign up for a pathway? Because if you're going to college or not, it even gives you just a passion of something you're interested in. Um, and it helps you explore different ideas. So maybe you try a pathway and you didn't like it. You can just try a different one and see if you like that passion. You also get the chance to get out of the typical classroom, try something new that you don't really see in the regular curriculum. And I think that's super important because sometimes when you're just sitting in a classroom listening to lectures, it can excuse me, it can become draining. So when you get out of that classroom into when I get into the MT classroom, is so there's a community. It's so welcoming, and it's so hands-on, and you move around, you talk to other people, and you brainstorm ideas, and it's so different from a regular classroom, in my opinion, which is why I think it's important for 8th graders to sign up early so they get that good experience in high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. I think my last question along with what you just shared, and maybe Sophia, if you want to talk about this first, and then we'll bounce back to Dylan. You're mentioning, why wouldn't you do a pathway? When you think about everything that you've learned through the classes that you've taken so far, what experiences or skills do you think might stay with you the longest?
Thank you. So, I'm a perfectionist at times. And so in the MET pathway specifically, there's a lot of constructive criticism that you're going to be taking in. And like I said before, since it's such a nice community in those classrooms, you're comfortable with people giving you criticism, and you build up that confidence to say, oh, I was wrong, or maybe I could do this better. And another thing is problem solving. With engineering, you have to have problem solving. And I think it's so important because when something doesn't work, you could think, oh, wait, maybe this would be better. And the MET pathway is about grit and perseverance. Do it, redo it, try it again. And with problem solving, being able to accept constructive criticism, we wouldn't be able to persevere. Um, I mean, I wouldn't be able to persevere. I would just be frustrated. But with these new skills that I learned, I would, it's just, I grown, and it's just so amazing. The pathways have given me confidence to grow, learn, and accept myself for who I am while pushing myself to new levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Dylan, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so going off kind of what Sophia said, I think one of the biggest things that I had taken away from the pathway is really just being able to work as a team, working with people that you might not have known, and just really combining all your ideas to come to that common goal. So, for example, I have this prosthetic arm that was designed by students a few years ago. And there's a lot of different intricate parts. We have, the different fingers, we have all the wiring inside, and it was a really in-depth project. And the students had to work together, so they might have divided up that someone was working on the fingertip, someone was working on the outer mold of the arm, someone was working with all the wires and the motors inside. But you have to work as a team to just kind of, as Sophia was saying, using that constructive criticism to be like, okay, maybe this would be better if I design it that way, or maybe I would work on, making this a little better, and just kind of bouncing and combining all those ideas off each other to make the most, efficient and best product that you can make. And I think just other things too is just having the, presenting skills. We do a decent amount of presenting our projects, whether that's going to be having a robot fight, showcasing everything that we've done, or we're doing an actual presentation to a company, really working on those interpersonal skills, having eye contact, things like that, and definitely being organized. There's a lot of moving parts, different materials, learning about the different machines, all these things. So making sure you have your notes and you're organized where you keep your designs, things like that. Those will definitely stay with me for a long time.
Thank you. So Annie, I feel like we could go on and talk about our student showcase and about funding and how we've been able to structure these things, but I really want to maybe press pause here. And I know you wanted to have some time for questions and answers. And while we have our superstars with me today, And, you know, if anyone wants to ask questions of Sophia or Dylan or Greg, I think it would be a great opportunity.
I couldn't agree more. I can't imagine more superstar spokespeople. And while I'm enjoying looking at like the actual prosthetic, when Dylan was showing that and the Mars rover and the teddy bear up on the screen, I think what I might do is shut the slide share off altogether. We are a relatively small group. That way it'll be easier to see and hear everybody. And I'm gonna just ask my colleagues Jennifer and Corbett to be tuned into the chat in case questions pop up there. But let me stop the share. And so Jennifer and Corbett, are there questions in the chat now that we can start out with? Or should we invite folks to post questions there? Or if you want to raise your hand and unmute, we can do it that way as well.
Yeah, no questions in the chat to date, but lots of praise for Dylan and Sophia. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to share.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure. I had so much fun.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome.
So we have a hand raised from Misha. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Tried to also do this. So yeah, I had 2 questions. One was what advanced classes that you took, Sophia, because it sounds like you're really interested in biomedical engineering. So what what kind of higher level courses did you take?
So just because I'm a sophomore, there's still some classes I need to take to get to those like AP Calculus and stuff. I take AP Pre-Calc next year, but right now I'm taking AP Psych and AP Euro. But those don't really relate to biomedical engineering. But hopefully I will take a VHS engineering class that will give me more insight on what I will be doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. And then my second question was, Greg was about to describe that the first half of the internship was exploratory and discovery based. And then the second half of the internship was going to be more project based, applied to the company. So what else does that look like for the second?
Pardon the interruption.
I'm sorry, was that question for me?
That was for you, Greg. I think if you wanted to talk a little more about where you think the internship experience might go, in addition to the rotating through different staff members and the self-directed learning that you described, what else is coming?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been happening as, Dylan has been meeting with folks in the organization and doing some of the self-directed learning is behind the scenes. We're talking about the progress he's making. As folks are meeting with Dylan, like our manufacturing manager, Adam is starting to imagine projects that might be good for Dylan to work on. So, again, it's kind of funny. I think when September got here and it was like, Dylan's going to be here next week, we're a busy organization. We're like, okay, well, that's 3 days from now. And the fact that we brought him in knowing that we didn't have to say to somebody, hey, Dylan's going to show up, what do you have planned for him for the next 9 months? It really allowed him to adjust to us by coming in here, meeting people, learning about the business. Every day he's here, we're thinking about, individually, we're thinking about projects that might be good for him. And so now as he goes through some of the self-directed learning, we're starting to generate ideas that will happen in maybe the back half of this semester or next semester. And they will leverage both his skills and his interests, right? So he's done a lot of self-directed learning on SolidWorks. He's now starting to print some 3D pieces on our 3D printers. We're going to have him do some self-directed learning on the Salesforce platform that will then have him work on some manufacturing related projects. So we think it will be very hands-on, and it's also important for us that he works autonomously, right? We think that is the real world experience. And we have designed this so that he's not coming in every day and requiring constant attention, right? We tried to make the self-directed learning thoughtful, and we'll make the projects thoughtful in a way that we're treating him like he's any other person in the building, right? He needs guidance and support and mentoring, but we kind of want to build this in a way that allows him to be autonomous and independent in the work he's doing.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Melissa.
Hi, thank you. So first off, this has been a great presentation, and Dylan, Sophia, thank you for taking time to share about your experiences. It's great to hear from students. So I have a few questions, both for Meredith and for you guys. First off, just the application process. What did that look like, Sophia and Dylan? How did you guys learn about the Innovation Pathway program at Carver? What was the outreach like? What was your application process like? And kind of with that, are there, is it an open application, Meredith, or are there any kind of like prerequisite GPA placement? Because we do have this AP college coursework piece. So how do you service students who maybe can't take AP or college coursework, and where does that fit into the application? So kind of a question for both the students and Meredith there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put both Sophia and Dylan on the spot and say, do you guys remember the application process?
I remember it.
You do?
Do you want me to? Yeah, I remember doing it my freshman year, so
Okay.
or my 8th grade year. So the application process, I remember. It was a piece of paper, well, obviously, and there were questions on it. I forget what the questions were like, but I remember talking to them with my mom and saying, "These are difficult questions, and it's gonna really take some effort to answer them." I did it, and I was so happy I did. I remember one of the questions was, oh, what was it? Okay, I can't remember. I'm sorry. But filling it out and thinking these are hard questions, but it was so educational, which was great.
Thank you. I'm impressed that you remember the application process, so that's wonderful. Dylan, I don't know if you remember it or not.
Yeah, so I think for me it was a little different because at the time, my freshman year was during COVID. So I think what had happened was that I was kind of placed into that intro level course, and there wasn't really kind of like a sign up at that point. They were just kind of placed in. And so I think after that year, you could decide whether or not you want to continue. And after my experience in that intro level course, I really enjoyed it. And as Sophia was saying, you had that piece of paper with all those really thought-provoking questions. So just spending time with that and, just submitting it, and you're in the pathway. So.
Yeah. So to answer your question, thank you, both of you. I'm very impressed that you remember it. This has been a growing pain, not specific to Innovation Pathways, but it's something that we've had to kind of calibrate and wrap our heads around with our other pathways as well. Though the level of standard for Innovation Pathways is a little bit different. And there are those little mini essay questions just to signal, some sort of connection with students, and to see if those questions allow them to emote and talk a little bit about why they want to be part of the pathway. There are no prerequisites in terms of GPA, and we really felt that that was an important piece in regards to our continual scrutiny of, are we meeting the guiding principles of Innovation Pathways? And removing the barriers to access was important. But the other piece is, someone said, if you don't have the GPA, what happens if you have a student that goes into an advanced placement class and, struggles with that? So another component of the guiding principles is to ensure that we have systems of support. And we had to document those thoroughly prior to determination, and then to continue to be able to support students through that process. So we do right now have a schedule that has a specific structure in it called the WIN block, or What I Need block. And there are all sorts of opportunities. The entire school kind of presses stop for 30 minutes during the day. And there are tons of different offerings that students can take. Some of them are very SEL focused, things like going for a nature walk, or being able to let off some steam. Others are much more academic. We have introvert-friendly options. We have options that build more camaraderie, or maybe appeal to an extrovert or someone that's really gregarious. But there's a whole buffet of choices. So that is one of our systems of support for students, is they can get academic support during that time. Additionally, for students that might be on an ed plan, we have a very structured opportunity for those students to receive support, because we wanted to make sure that we were not being exclusionary or exclusive, and that all students have the opportunity to benefit from this level of rigor and relevance. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. And then if just a quick follow-up, is AP how you meet the requirement for the 2 classes? You don't do any like dual credit classes or have professors come in to teach, or is it always just AP for you guys?
So for right now, for the innovation pathways, it's AP and Project Lead the Way. So we're designated for Project Lead the Way for computer science. And so both of those are options. We don't have early college designation yet. And we do have some opportunities via like VHS. And we do have one dual enrollment program, but not specific to innovation pathways. It's just something that lives within our school. So by and large, it's through AP or Project Lead the Way. Yes, and I'm sorry, VHS is virtual high school. I didn't do a great job of sharing that.
You're doing an amazing job. And I just really want to amplify what you're saying about your approach to equity being not just equity of access at the time of application, but really considering supports and structures in your pathways that deliver equitable experiences for students through the pathway and the outcomes of the pathway. Are there other questions in the room?
Yes, actually, one in the chat from Heather from Apple High School. Heather wrote, I'm wondering if there are any outside of class cohort experiences students participate in, e.g. field trips, advisory. Also, I'd love to hear more about how internships are managed at Carver High School. Is there an internship coordinator, and how many different internships are there? How do students apply for or receive an internship?
Yes, so and Sophia and Dylan, you guys can definitely jump in on your class experiences. So I will say that because this project or program started amidst COVID, we had to get creative, but having connection to the real world is super important. So both Dylan and Sophia can talk about interactions that they may have had, even if it's been virtual, with folks, again, places like iRobot or the Cranberry Growers, or we also connect with, I think, MIT and Woods Hole does Sea Perch, and we have a unit about underwater robotics and that whole component, because we want to make sure that we're super diverse in the various disciplines in which manufacturing, engineering, and technology can apply. So we also have the Plymouth Airport close by and a connection with 4Cs, which is Cape Cod Community College, just in terms of the fact that they're running an aviation tech program. And so we've done a lot of things regarding like Bernoulli's principle and creating like a wind tunnel and trying to work on wing dynamics, and again, working through those iterative processes. So before I go any further and talk about our internship program, I'm just wondering if Dylan or Sophia want to add anything else to that. You don't have to, but no, we're good. Okay. So in regards to internships, the piece that Carver really benefited from is we already had a longstanding internship program for our seniors. It didn't mean that everything was easy. In fact, we spent a lot of time, Greg donated a significant amount of time helping us just understand how to create this 100+ hour internship in a way that was effective for students, and to really look at how students could be placed. So that was very beneficial. And on a previous slide, we talked about how as we had these annual showcases, we actually created different layers of partnership with visitors that would come in. Again, another brainstorm that Greg came up with. And rather than having folks come in and see the students at work during the student showcase and then immediately hitting them up for an internship, we have different layers where if someone is like, you know what, I can't take an intern right now, but I'm interested in being a sponsor this way, or I'm interested in sitting on a curriculum advisory so that I can help inform what skills students are leaving with. So that's been a huge component, but we have an internship coordinator who works for us 2 days a week and works for another district 3 days a week. And there's an application process. We have a guidance curriculum that is embedded into each year of high school. So it's not a standalone class. They typically push into English classes, even though sometimes there are other classes that they push into. And part of junior workshop is going through the internship application process, writing a resume, preparing for job interviews, and that component. So that's been integral. And then we also, our English department helps us by running a technical writing class that is specific to writing in these technical settings so that students are leaving with the appropriate level of skill, if not more than the appropriate level, in regards to technical reading and writing.
You know, Meredith, just to add to some of what you said, you know, I think one of the things that we've really thought a lot about as we think about these internships is really playing a long game. You know, this isn't just about placing a handful of kids next year, but how do we do this at scale in the years ahead? And I think a couple of the things that we've learned is, you know, the business community isn't as well connected as one would hope. You know, it's not like you can go to an event, a local event, and all the manufacturers are there. It's just it just hasn't been made that easy for us. So I think a couple of the things we've done have really centered around the marketing of this program. And I think one of the things we kind of helped Meredith and her team see was a real place to communicate with these businesses is on LinkedIn, right? That's where a lot of folks in industry, that's kind of their version of social media. And I think it was interesting that as I started working with Meredith and her team, not a lot of folks in the education community really used that social media platform. I think the other thing that we did was really leverage folks like Mass Hire. We leveraged Mass MEP. We leveraged our local Chamber of Commerce, you know, as we were promoting these showcase events to really start to build a communication pipeline to those folks that we could leverage in the years to come. And another part of that has been the use of constant contact. You know, we convinced the school to purchase a license to that. So we're kind of building a database of these companies and these organizations so that we can keep track of who's come to the event. We can keep track of who said they would be a brand ambassador or would be interested in hosting an intern. And we can go back to those folks semester after semester, year after year, and really build kind of this long-term network of the relationships with the business community and the schools program.
So we unfortunately are reaching the end of our time, and I really hate to cut off this conversation because it's been so insightful, and I can't emphasize enough how the benefits of building a diverse team of people who are committed to making good things happen for students and working hard and adjusting along the way really shows up not just in what we're hearing from Greg and from Meredith, but how that actually really comes through in what we heard from Dylan and Sophia about the kinds of skills that they're identifying, things like teamwork and problem solving that they'll carry with them, and that we know will transfer into higher education, into a whole variety of employment settings in their very bright futures. So it's really remarkable, and a pity that we can't carry on longer with this conversation, Meredith, with you and your guests from Carver. I'm so grateful for everyone's time today in speaking to our audience. And normally, I would have paused to close out the event by sharing some reminders of upcoming events and a survey link. I think the survey link will go into the chat, and there's also a link that I can see Allison just posted where you can register for our upcoming events. I will put those in our follow-up email tomorrow as well. Please do the survey when you get a moment. We count on hearing your feedback. And once again, huge thank you to our guests from Carver today for your amazing presentation.